Hello and welcome to IGPP Expert Talks. I'm Heena Goswami, Editorial Consultant with IGPP, Institute for Governance, Policies and Politics, New Delhi. Before the elections began in India, AI was the buzzword and predictions abounded on the potential impact of AI on electoral campaigns. But as the elections are over now, it's time to take a stock of the impact AI really made. And to discuss the same, we are joined by Nihal J. Krishan. Nihal is an award-winning journalist whose work has appeared in the Boston Globe, US Today, MSNBC, the Huffington Post, and the Hindu. Currently reporting on tech policy for the Hindu and CSDR in New Delhi, he has spent the past decade as a reporter in DC with the Washington Examiner, Mother Jones, The New Republic, and PBS Arizona. Nihal has broken multiple stories of national interest regarding campaign finance, economic policy, big tech developments, and the explosion of AI in the past year. Welcome to IGPP Expert Talks, Nihal.
Thanks so much for having me, Heena. It's a pleasure. Look forward to this conversation.
It has been an intriguing year for electoral campaigning, and the Indian elections just got over. We have the results now. How do you see the use of AI technologies in the election? Do you think there was a lot of buzz around it before the elections were to take place? There are a lot of global stories at the moment on the impact that AI has had. How do you see it?
So, regarding the use of AI in the Indian elections, I think you're very much right to say there was a lot of buzz and attention around potential fears of AI being misused through deep fakes, through fake news, or altered videos, photos, text content. But in actuality, I think thankfully for all of us in India and for our democracy and our political parties, thankfully there has not been a humongous widespread use of generative AI tools in spreading of misinformation or disinformation or fake news in any significant fashion, more than has already been occurring in the past. We had issues related to misinformation and disinformation and fake news, but it was not the generative AI tools, whether it's Chat GPT or tools from Google's Gemini or Midjourney or others, significantly increase the risk and danger of fake news or deep fakes or misinformation. In that sense, I think we have to be quite grateful and thankful that I think a combination of the fact that the tools and technology is not that powerful yet, that it has been able to create videos or photos or content that has, fooled or changed the perception of hundreds of millions or billions of people. And I think it's also part of the fact that there has been relatively good transparency, of some candidates, some political parties that have used generative AI tools. Many of them have been transparent, so people have known that this is created by AI. And of course, there is also some degree of literacy. People also have some sense of what looks fake, what looks real, what is AI generated, what's not. And so, there was a lot of fear, and there was certainly use of AI in the elections when it came to the primary uses were politicians would create AI avatars of themselves. So you create a virtual version of yourself that then can talk to millions or hundreds of millions of people and answer like it sounds like you, or robocall. So you use an AI tools to call thousands or millions of people and wish them for their birthday or ask for their vote or ask for their support, because you cannot physically call thousands or millions of people. So there has been use of AI with robocalls, with AI avatars, even some deep fakes of politicians who have died or passed away, and you create a deep fake of them back alive and supporting a specific candidate or issue. But none of these in a widespread of viral fashion were able to undermine our elections or undermine our democracy in any significant way. There may have been small elements here and there, but there was no major catastrophic instance or instances of AI undermining our elections and democracy. It's still something we have to be vigilant about and have better transparency, more standards, more regulations, according to many in the industry and lawyers and digital rights activists. But yes, fortunately, there was the fear that this could completely overturn our elections and have widespread viral misinformation and deep fakes and create huge problems and mistrust, fortunately did not occur. It was on a much more low, subdued level as far as we know so far.
What are the factors that have limited the negative impact that AI could have made? One you mentioned is the transparency by the parties who were using the AI technology themselves. Another is literacy on part of the viewers. Were there other factors at play? Also, how do you see the role of tech companies in limiting the negative use of AI?
Yeah, so tech companies, the actual creators and founders of AI technology, so whether it's OpenAI or Microsoft or Google or Anthropic or Claude, they play a large role. They have a very significant responsibility behind how AI is used, generative AI tools are used and perceived, and especially in the elections, they definitely have a large responsibility. I think the key responsibilities they have is one is being transparent and making sure that whenever a piece of AI content is out there, photo, video, text, that people are aware that it has come from this platform or has been altered by AI or been changed. So there is a sense of transparency that is very important. Things like watermarking, things like digital stamping, digital metadata. This is important as much as possible to have that transparency so people can know. It's not that all things generated by AI are bad or problematic or harmful, but people should know, okay, this was generated by AI or an AI tool, and this was generated by a human, so that they can just have a knowledge and understanding and context. So that is there. But in terms of reasons why we didn't see an explosion of AI-driven misinformation, deep fakes, disinformation, as I mentioned, I think one is just because the technology is not powerful enough yet to be able to create videos, photos, text that sort of deceptively changes the mind or persuades people. It's not to say that it's not capable of doing that, but one, I think there is still, it's that the power of the technology is still, there's still some development left, and in the coming months or the coming years, maybe it will get to have that kind of power. But I think generative AI tools are still relatively new. It's only been in the past. We've had AI for many decades, but generative AI tools for content creation of videos, photos, text is relatively new, just within the past year and a half. So I think, we haven't reached a stage where they have been able to deceive people in mass, at least in the election. So part of it is the technology and how it's still new and nascent and growing. And then part of it is just that we haven't seen political parties use this in a widespread way. We saw it with a few deepfake videos that were openly acknowledged and transparent. We saw it with the voice robocalls. We saw it with the AI avatars. But we didn't see, like, for example, the BJP tried to create like a complete deepfake of Rahul Gandhi saying something bad or controversial, or somebody in the Congress party creating a deep fake of Prime Minister Modi saying something completely false and fake. We saw some third parties do that, but usually they were, oftentimes they were swept aside and they were shown that this is fake relatively quickly. It wasn't that the political parties spread a lot of misinformation and disinformation, but they did use AI tools specifically to to sow mistrust or create misinformation. They used other more traditional methods of political propaganda and misinformation. So I think it's a combination of the technology being new and still having scope to grow and get more powerful. It's the fact that a lot of political parties didn't use AI in a very manipulative, overtly, fake fashion. That was the second point. And then third is that there has been some literacy and understanding in the Indian population when it comes to what AI tools are. There's still a lot of more media literacy that could be done and could be strengthened, but some already did. So I think these are three reasons why it hasn't caused havoc and turned our elections upside down.
Do you think the regulatory mechanism also succeeded in ensuring that only ethical use of AI or AI is not used at such a large scale to manipulate voters? Because if we see the case of India, while there have been knee-jerk responses by the government, but the government has been proactive. There was also the revised intermediary guidelines in 2021 and other governmental advisories that said that you have to label the content if it's if it's AI generated. Do you think the regulatory mechanism also had a part to play there?
Yeah, so I think that's a fair question. The regulatory mechanisms, very few of them exist when it comes to AI. India does not have a comprehensive AI policy or comprehensive AI set of regulations. There have been a few national AI advisories, and shortly before the election, the IT ministry put out a relatively short, 2-page set of rules around use of AI and requirement for transparency and wanting to make sure it's not misused during the election. And then actually 2 weeks later, quite controversially, they rescinded the AI advisory this was in March itself, and put out a new one that was watered down, that had fewer requirements and was supposed to be less onerous or less intense for the AI companies and creators, the tech companies. So there are some regulations in place, as I said, with the national AI advisories, but I think mostly the regulations have just played a role in, they are rules on the book, and there have been a few times that the government has had to exercise it. But for the most part, the AI regulations are still to be created and formed in a comprehensive way. There are very few of them that are actually in the law so far. And the few that are on the books, that the government has not, in a very large, widespread way, had to exercise its authorities when it comes to AI. So I think the fact that we have some regulations on the book is good, is positive. And it's good to be able to have power and authority to exercise, but I don't think the government has actually used that authority in any really extensive fashion. So for example, we have the Information Technology Act of 2000 and the IT intermediary guidelines, the Digital Media Ethics Code rules of 2021. And then, of course, the Indian Penal Code, the People's Act of 1950 and 1951, which have codes of conduct. These are all ways in which the government has the power to remove content or to censor and to try to stop the spread of what they classify as harmful information. And the Election Commission has said just in March and April that they've told political parties that these legal provisions exist for stopping the use of misinformation, stopping the use of deepfakes. But to our knowledge, the Election Commission has not had to use. There were some instances of misinformation and deepfakes where they had to ask political parties and others to take down content, but this was not widespread. We didn't see hundreds or thousands of cases of this happening or every day, all the time. There were some cases, but this was not widespread. So I think it's good that we have some regulations on the book, but India has a long way to go in terms of having a comprehensive, fully fleshed out regulatory approach to AI and misinformation and deepfakes. It's still very early days of regulation and policy.
Bring into light again the role of technology companies, tech companies. A coalition of 20 tech companies, including Microsoft, Meta, Google, TikTok, signed an accord a few months ago to combat the deceptive use of AI in 2024 elections. Have these companies been able to bring any substantial changes through this initiative?
Yeah, so this is something I've actually reported on and written on relatively extensively, and I've interviewed a number of relevant scholars, experts, tech officials, government officials, tech executive government officials on this. So basically, I'll just give a little bit of background on what the C2PA is, the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity. Basically, it is a coalition of companies, Adobe, Intel, Microsoft, Google, others, that have created a coalition, and it's basically a standard of agreement that says whenever we create AI content, AI media, that there will be a certain symbol or sign that shows this was created by AI, this was created by this tool, and it helps to verify images, videos, audio documents as being AI created or AI edited. And it basically allows, in a very easy, quick, visual fashion, people can understand, okay, this has been created by AI and been created by this tool. And across the board, as I said, right, Adobe, Microsoft, OpenAI, others, they're all trying to follow this standard. And so then, that we're talking about, the biggest tech companies that billions of people use. So obviously there may be some AI tools that maybe have not agreed to this C2PA, that people may have confusion understanding is it AI created or not, but these are the largest companies in the world. So billions of people it will be easier for them to recognize when something has been created by an AI tool, especially the companies that have signed on to this, and when it is created by a human or created by some other third party. So, it's basically fundamentally a tool for transparency, a watermarking tool. So either you have a visual symbol that shows in it, like how on photos you have, photo taken by Times of India, photo taken by AP, photo taken by AP. So sometimes you can see in the back of a photo now, there is a little logo or a symbol that shows it was taken by this company or this photo agency. So like that, it's a watermark that shows it was created by this AI tool, and so it's a way of creating trust and transparency with having a small symbol. It's called a content credential from, the companies that have signed on to this, and creating a greater sense of trust. Basically, this C2PA, the Content Provenance Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity, that Adobe, Intel, Microsoft, Google, others have all signed on to. This is it basically is it's kind of like a set of good housekeeping. It's good way to create a sense of trust for the average person for what is AI created and what is not, and it does reduce the ability for people to be manipulated. But that being said, it's not a perfect solution. Like, people can still very much so, without too much difficulty, if you have some degree of technical skills, you can create a video or a photo or an audio piece of content that has no C2PA logo, no transparency on it. Or you can take something that has the C2PA logo and you can remove it, you can strip it off. We do not have some ironclad golden bullet solution that ensures that there is always transparency for something that is AI generated, or that can prevent bad actors, bad organizations from putting something out. And you can even, not only can you put out something that does not have AI transparency from this coalition, but you could create a piece of content that does have the C2PA logo, that shows the authenticity, but is actually not actually coming from one of those platforms. So you can misuse the logo to create a sense of trust from somebody. Oh, this has come from Google. Oh, this has come from Microsoft OpenAI, but it really has not. So this is a good step, very much a good step in the right direction, but it is not a permanent or full solution. It is one which has a lot of loopholes. It can be misused to generate more mistrust and misinformation by some bad actors. If not, they can strip off the logo. So, it is still something that is supported by, misinformation, disinformation scholars around the world, by tech experts, by the tech companies, but it is not a perfect solution. If you're a bad actor and you really want to create something that shows misinformation, that creates mistrust, that is fake, you can still do it, and you can get away. You'll have this coalition, the C2PA standard makes it harder to put out things that are fake, that are spreading misinformation. But it is possible to do it if you have the right technical skills. It is very much possible to get around this coalition.
I think when we
at the moment,
people who are developing technology, one of the probable solution to the plethora of disinformation and misinformation and the problem of deepfake, the probable solution is always labeling and watermarking of AI generated content, right? But as you mentioned, it's not robust enough. It's not 100% effective. In fact, it can be misused in a reverse way, to have the watermark and to have a fake watermark and to further propagate misinformation. In the 2024 has been an year of elections. Elections that happened in the first half of 2024. Many others are scheduled in the remaining month. How do you think, what steps do you think that major tech companies and social media platforms can take to ensure practical and ethical use of AI in the upcoming elections? And what lessons they can learn from previous elections to make sure that, they are better equipped going forward?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, social media companies, as well as AI creators. So whether we're talking about Meta, WhatsApp, Instagram, or AI creators, OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, others. I think first and foremost, in a country like India or in other countries, non-English speaking countries, they need to have much stronger mechanisms for detecting fake news, misinformation, disinformation, misuse of AI in non-English languages. So in Hindi, in Urdu, in Devangari, in Arabic, in Malay, the social media content moderation rules and misinformation, disinformation is far better within the English language. So we've seen this, when a content like Taylor Swift had like a deep fake that was out a few months ago, and within 24 hours it was taken down, and they did their best to remove all instances of that deep fake of Taylor Swift. Whereas if there is a similar person in India who is speaking in Urdu or Hindi or another language, it typically takes much longer if such a video or such a piece of content or writing is in another language. They find that tech companies, AI creators, social media companies have found it much harder to quickly identify and take it down. Sometimes it remains up for days or weeks, or sometimes never gets taken down. So I think that's a big one when it comes to elections, especially in developing countries or in countries where English is not English. And when I say English, I mean especially non-Latin based languages. So you have Spanish and French and all, which are still European, Roman, Latin languages, which have the same alphabet. I mean languages which have a completely different alphabet and a different script. from English and Latin or Roman languages. So I think that's one big area that social media companies, AI creators need to come up the curve, is on um, ensuring they have the right content moderation and safety ethical standards for non-English languages. I think that's a big area of improvement. We've heard this from scholars and academics and digital rights activists. That's one. Another is, obviously there are already some protocols in place for how AI tools can be used. So OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, others, they have rules as to, you cannot use it to generate content that is filled with like hatred or racism, or so there are certain issues which they will say, we will not, even if you ask us to generate a photo or video content, we will not do so. So I think there are some ways in which such mechanisms and procedures can be improved. Sometimes some of these rules either don't work. You can put in certain prompts and they will spit out information or content that is still harmful. And sometimes they're too censorious. They will make it too difficult to even generate normal or good or healthy content. So I think there is still work to do to ensure that the rules and regulations around how generative AI is to be used, particularly when it comes to sensitive or controversial information or topics or election, to make sure that only the right mechanisms are in place to stop harmful use, but make sure that they're not so stringent, not so strict that they reduce people's ability to have normal or healthy speech. So I think that's another area of improvement. As I said, we're all in early days of understanding these tools and learning how to regulate them. But I think those are two big areas: non-English speaking, content moderation, AI recognition, and also the use. You should be able to create AI content in non-English languages. That is still an area where there's big gaps. We're not able to create content in non-English languages as powerfully or as easily as we can in English. So we need to have non-English language, as I said, Hindi, Devangari, Punjabi, others. And then second is to ensure that we have the right standards and the right red lines in place as to how AI tools cannot be used in elections, but a fine balance between that and allowing speech to occur. So I think these are two big areas of some improvement. Yes, all the AI creators, OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, Anthropic, have tried to take, in their understanding, according to them, they have tried to take serious, significant steps to ensure ethical use of AI. That is what they say and what they claim, and that they are trying their best to ensure that it will not be used in harmful ways. That's their perspective.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Nihal, and giving us your valuable time. It was lovely talking to you and hearing to your insightful views.
In harmful ways. That's their perspective.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Nihal, and giving us your valuable time. It was lovely.